most important things that I've been learning in the last couple of years or so is what leads to, for lack of better terms, failed conversations, difficult conversations that kind of fall apart. I've been thinking about this for a long time, especially influenced by Sheila Heen and her colleagues who wrote a book called Difficult Conversations and then another book called Thanks for the Feedback. And they say that a difficult conversation becomes difficult because of identity, because we feel like the person's criticizing us as a person. I'll give you a little thought experiment. Let's imagine you have a sister, and your sister has a daughter, and you love your sister's daughter, your niece, almost like your own child. And you spend a lot of time with your niece and a lot of time together. And you just love this kid so much, and you're watching your sister as she raises her daughter, and you think, she's making a lot of mistakes as a parent. I've got to go tell her she's not being a good parent. How easy would that conversation be? And chances are, it would be such a difficult conversation that you might not even have the conversation even though you love her daughter like your own child. And you can see what's happening, and you think she needs to know, but you might be so worried about damaging your relationship with your sister that you won't cross the bridge because you criticize how a person parents. You criticize who they are as a person. And there are a lot of things that we take that personally. Teachers, for example, I would say teaching is almost as personal as parenting. You criticize how a person teaches, you're going to get in trouble with your conversation. And what Sheila Heen says is, that's because it's our identity. And our identity is the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. And when something threatens the story we tell about ourselves, we get defensive. So this is the key part, there are four things that I think are really important to keep in mind as you have conversations. And if you keep this in mind, you'll be less likely to have conversations that kind of blow up. First thing is, people want to feel like they're good people. If they feel like you're telling them they're a bad person, you should be doing this, you let people down by doing this, you're lazy, whatever it is you're communicating. If you feel like they feel like you're telling them they're a bad person, they're not going to hear what you say. The whole conversation is going to be about the fact that actually I am a good person. How dare you say that? The second thing is people want to feel like they're competent at what they do. Well, they might see their own limitations and their own weaknesses, but they don't want you to point them out. And so when you start to communicate in the way you communicate that they're incompetent, it's going to be problematic. If you can communicate that you have faith in them and you see their strengths, as I say, be a witness to the good with them, way more likelihood that you can talk about the challenging components that might come up in a conversation. The third thing is that people want to feel connection. If you wanted to put it really positively, people want to be loved. They want to feel at least that they're not rejected. They don't even want to be rejected by people they reject. And so if you're having a conversation with the other person, you want to make sure they know that you're not rejecting them, because rejection will be something that will sidetrack your conversation. And then lastly, people want to have some control over what they do. And when you interact with people, you give them some control over what they do. You don't try to control them, and you connect with them in some way as best you can, or at least you don't reject them. And you're careful about the way you talk about competence, and you don't communicate that they're a bad person, that you see their innate goodness. One way to do that is to come from a place of benevolence in your interactions with them, to genuinely want what's best for them. Then chances of having a bad conversation are less likely. Every conversation is dynamic. Every conversation's it's a living thing, and you never know where it's going to go. But in my experience, at least, if the person knows that they're good, if the person knows you see what they're doing well, their competence, the person feels a sense of connection, and the person has some control, or at least we're not trying to control them, there's a much greater likelihood the conversation will be successful.